there is some level of concern for some of these units. And let's walk through a few, Roddy, and we'll start. And maybe there's none. I don't know. You tell me, 1 to 10 or whatever you want to do on this Oklahoma offense.
I actually think this crew, the level of concern is fairly low. I know they have underperformed so far this season, but the truth of the matter is they have proven talent on that side of the ball. Spencer Rattler, Marvin Mims, Jadon Hazelwood, Kennedy Brooks, Eric Gray, like they have the talent. The question is, can they figure out the pieces? They've struggled throwing the ball down the field, which is the biggest thing. Marvin Mims only has 8 receptions on the season. They moved him into the slot there in the offseason. So the question is, what do they need to do to get him going? Do you need to move him back outside? Jadon Hazelwood has kind of been the lead target. But I think pushing the ball down the field more, getting that run game going with Gray and with Kennedy Brooks is going to be big. But getting Marvin Mims more involved, he's got to have more than 9 targets through 3 games. So I think the concern level is fairly low with Oklahoma on offense.
Yeah, I would say it's low as well because we all know that Oklahoma sooner or later is going to get it going. Obviously, they haven't gotten the ball down the field. Defenses know that Lincoln Riley coach teams love pressing and pushing that ball down the field, so they're game planning for it. But even if you're game planning for it, the great teams have to find a way to overcome. Spencer Rattler in particular has to find a way to overcome, and obviously Marvin Mims needs to get his targets. But I'm not worried. Just like last year, Spencer Rattler started slow and found his groove. I believe Oklahoma and Spencer Rattler under Lincoln Riley will find their groove.
Sam, you know what's interesting? You don't just lose a player the caliber of Trevor Lawrence and pick up right where you left off. And yet, in some aspects, I feel like that's almost what we expected of Clemson. Instead, you know, there's an adjustment period. Maybe we should have known that. But what's your level of concern on this Clemson offense?
I actually am concerned a little bit about the Clemson's offense. Number one, DJ Uiagalelei has not found a way to get a rhythm. That's number one. Number two, they've lost a ton of playmakers. Like all those guys, not even just on the receiver position, but even offensive line. Guys like Jackson Carman are now in the NFL. Travis Etienne, all those playmakers, you got to find some new ones. And so DJ's got to find a groove. You can't find it, obviously, number one, against Georgia. That defense shut him down. And then secondly, people need to step up, and that's what we're not seeing. We obviously always expect it's Clemson. They're going to figure it out. They're going to find a way. But Trevor Lawrence was a generational talent, and GJ still has a lot left to prove.
I agree, Acho. The level of concern with Clemson on offense is high. And Wendi, you mentioned the fact that maybe we should have known this was coming. After Taj Boyd left Clemson, we forget that there was a Cole Stout year when Deshaun Watson was a true freshman where that offense didn't perform to the level that we were accustomed to. After Deshaun Watson left, we forget that Kelly Bryant was the quarterback of Clemson before Trevor Lawrence took over after 4 games the next season, and that offense was not what we were accustomed to. So maybe the fact that it takes a little bit after a generational quarterback leaves your program should be expected. Now, they've got a ton of talent on that offense. The offensive line, though, is kind of in its second year where it has not performed up to the standards that Clemson is compared to, the college football playoff level teams. So the offensive line has to improve. They've got to figure out the running back situation. It looks like Will Shipley's going to be the guy, but there are concerns throughout that Clemson offense, I would say.
I agree that there's cause for concern. I also agree there's reasons for it. And again, I feel like we've gotten so used to that production year in and year out. Alabama's the one school where it truly doesn't seem to matter, but I don't know. Who knows what's going on in Tuscaloosa? Let me ask you about what's going on in Columbus, Roddy, and that's that Ohio State defense. Listen, when you think about those Buckeyes, you think about a stout defense. Are you concerned at all about that unit?
Yes, Wendi, I am equally as concerned about this unit as I was about Clemson on offense. And here's why. We look at that defense in 2019, and that defense is looking like it's the exception rather than the rule. 3 of the past 4 seasons, 18, 20, and now in 21, this has been a defense where we've been asking ourselves, what is going on with Ohio State on defense? The biggest thing for me is that defensive line, after going from Bosa brother to Chase Young, hasn't been able to create the pressure. And Larry Johnson's one of the best defensive line coaches in the country. So I'm not saying he's not going to figure out a way to get that group going, but they have to be better. They have to stop busting assignments. And after switching from Kerry Combs as defensive coordinator to a different defensive play caller, they've got to be able to figure it out because now 3 of the last 4 years, this has been an underachieving unit for Ohio State.
Yeah, and I'm concerned as well, especially when you talk about a defensive coordinator switch. Oftentimes, you switch coordinators, you think the performance will be better. It wasn't. Even going back to this Oregon game, like Oregon ran the same play over and over and over again, that 14-yard line on the left side, and there were no edges on this defense. And so when I get concerned as a defensive player, I look at scheme, I look at alignment, I look at assignment and technique. When I look at the assignment, it seems like the players aren't performing their assignments, and there aren't adjustments being made that need to be made. And so it not only is a player issue, but it goes to a who's calling the plays issues. What's your scheme issue? And that's why I'm concerned with Ohio State on defense.
Well, we want to stick with Ohio State, though, some news on offense, and that is Buckeye quarterback C.J. Stroud will only be available on Saturday in an emergency capacity. That game against Akron, according to head coach Ryan Day. Stroud is nursing a shoulder injury. Kyle McCord or Jack Miller will start in his place. True freshman Quinn Ewers will not be available.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.